It's the only wrestling podcast on earth with one two-time X Division champion, the man behind the man at Impact Wrestling, my best friend and yours. That's Petey Williams.
How's she going, eh?
Dimitri Young should pop in any minute now. When he does, we'll give him a cute little, MLB All-Star, blah, blah, blah. Lars is on an airplane, so he's not here. It's not even private, I don't think. I tried to convince him to get the in-flight Wi-Fi so
why
he
not?
can do the show from the actual airplane, but I don't think he's going to join the Mile High Pod Club. So I've been working on that one all day, guys. Thank you.
There you go.
You still fumbled on it. That's all right.
Guys, that's why promos are scripted now, because of, believe it or not. So I screwed that one up, but thanks for calling it out, Pete.
Yeah, no problem. You called me out on my, okay, so go on.
So Pete, we're sitting here with one of your coworkers today. Why don't you introduce them?
Oh man, we go way back to like
Wednesday,
April,
February.
April. Oh yeah, February.
Maybe February, January, one of those months.
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys that started all this YouTube and all this kind of stuff, doing this video stuff. But my coworker from Impact Wrestling, Matt Cardona. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome.
Man, when you were released, you were one of those people that were on my bucket list of people I wanted to interview because of everything you've done, not even inside the wrestling ring, but just in the wrestling business. The YouTube channel, which Pete brought up, I was a huge fan of. We're definitely going to talk a lot about that, I'm sure, because a lot of people don't know this, and this isn't my question, but you're kind of the one of the forefathers of wrestlers using the social media, getting themselves over on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I wasn't the first wrestler by any means who had a web show or even a Twitter account, but I think I was one of the first people, if not the first, who realized, okay, I need to blend my character and my real life together and let the people in. And because I believe that authenticity is very important, and transparency, and people just want to see behind the curtain. So I would let them in. I was still, Zack Ryder on this YouTube show, but I let them in to my life. I had my dad on the show, my friends. I talked about my girlfriend breaking up with me, stuff like that. And I think people appreciated that.
Well, I'm going to jump in because right now you are one of the hottest names in wrestling with what you've been doing in GCW, which I got to be honest with you, I didn't see coming.
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah. Yeah. Phenomenal. And here's the thing. And this is as a fan from the outside looking in, I so out of your norm. Did you have to be talked into this? Because the hardcore thing, I don't think Pete's ever been in a hardcore match. For me, watching a hardcore match, I'm a little cringeworthy when it comes to it, but I tuned in, I watched, and this evolution of where you were, because you didn't spend much time on the indies before going into the WWE. So I didn't really get to know you that well in the indie circuit outside of who you were in the WWE. But when I see, Matt in a hardcore match and being crowned like king of hardcore, I think, holy shit, how's that happen for you?
Yeah. So listen, I don't know exactly how it happened, if a fan tweeted it or Nick Gage tweeted it. And at first I thought it was just a joke. So I was playing along, like he says MDK, I guess that's a gang. So I was like, yeah, I'm in MDK. I was saying the major Detolf collectors. Detolf is a display case from IKEA where we put our toys. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in MDK all day. And then it escalated into this death match. And I think sometimes in wrestling, you actually have to give the fans what they want. And enough people wanted to see this match, whether they want to see me get my ass kicked or not. I don't care. They wanted to see it. And I knew that there'd be some interest. I didn't realize how much interest there would be. I could not predict that we would trend number one over UFC and Olympics, but we did. I just knew we had something, and I'm all about trying new things. I'm not saying everything I do is going to be a success, but I just want to try. I just want the opportunity. And this seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime.
Matt, I do want to cut everybody off and introduce Dimitri Young, who has popped in, two-time MLB All-Star, the head coach himself. Dimitri, hey, we missed you.
Hey, I missed you guys too. And Matt, my apologies for being late. I actually fell asleep. I went fishing today with my on my mom's birthday. She passed away 13 years ago. But Yeah, we caught some white sea bass, yellowtail, and then, I'm almost 48. I had to take a nap.
That's right. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
But Matt, let me hit a follow-up question really quick, and then we'll move on. The fans' reaction after you won. You've talked a little bit about it all over social media. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the crowd they are. I'm not here to pass judgment on them. I would never throw anything, but that's that crowd. You go into that, you go into the Lions Den, you expect something like that. But did you expect that kind of reaction?
No, I knew the people were going to be upset because listen, it's 2021. We all know the deal. And I believe that some of the fans there, they just wanted to boo me because it's part of the show. But some of the fans there wanted to boo me because they wanted me to die. Some people, there's pictures, videos, there's proof of this. They have my action figure with nooses around my neck, like hanging my action figure. Like, this is not normal. I was receiving death threats, people tweeting that they wanted Chelsea to get cut up by Nick Gage. And then, the bottles and the cans, that's fine. Throw bottles and cans. But if you actually stop the footage and pause it, people were throwing pizza cutters. Like, that's where it's like, okay, dude, you're throwing a pizza cutter? Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
No, it is. So I also, like, since we're on this topic, all right, so I'm assuming first, you've never been in that type of match before, right?
Never. First time, last time, only time, never again.
All right. So I know, like, but you've been on the biggest of the biggest, like,
Sure,
shows and all that kind of stuff. But were you, and I know when I go, like, the first time I ever did like a ladder match, for example, that's different. That's not regular wrestling, I mean, you're gonna, were you nervous like going into this being like, oh man, like,
I am not going to lie. Listen, I knew what I was signing up for to an extent. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get hit with a light tube. I'm probably going to bleed. Let me wear all white. It will look cool if there's some blood. I did not imagine that my white shirt would turn completely red. And right before I went out there, I'm like, listen, I don't know Nick Gage. I don't know him. The only thing I know about him is that he went to jail, that he like died and came back to life, that he has this dark side of the ring. I'm thinking like, this is legit. Are they going to legitimately try to murder me and like trend like GCW kills Matt Cardona lot like that? I was scared to death. Luckily that didn't happen, but yeah, I was scared. And, I'm still here talking about it. So I survived and I won, but yeah, I was definitely scared going into it.
So, and last thing, and then Dimitri, you could jump in, and not just so I can back you and not like have you sound like a wuss, you know? So when I went up against Nick Gage as well, and it was like a King of Trios match 3-on-3, and he was one of the guys in the match. And he had some like, like heat with Steiner or whatever.
Right.
But I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, okay, this guy died, came back to life, he's been to prison. I'm like, he's a hardcore and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, am I gonna get hit with light tubes tonight? Am I gonna same thing? I was like, is he gonna try to kill me? And obviously, he didn't. I'm alive, you're alive, but I didn't have a question, but I just wanted to back you up. That you're not a wuss when it comes to that. Nick Gage is very intimidating. His, reputation is like, he is going to kill you. So I think anybody that gets out of there not dead, it's a good day. Dimitri.
Okay. Well, I've been in Florida for the past 2 weeks, mentoring young baseball players at the Hank Aaron Invitational, and then with Perfect. So I'm going into more of a mentorship role. And so my question to you, now that you're more of a veteran in the game, how do you take to being a mentor or, somebody that's a veteran, been there, done that, knows the ins and outs for an up and comer that's looking to be one day you?
Here's the thing, and people aren't going to like this, but you're going to have to do a lot of fucking work. It's not going to come easy, and it's not all going to be, this dream come true. It's going to be highs and lows, but if you want it bad enough, you got to put in the work. You got to be working 24/7. And that's legitimate. Like it cannot stop. It can't, like if you're going to wrestling school, you can't just go the 2 days a week, like if you're going only 2 days a week, you got to be, whether it be watching matches or going to the gym or eating right or whatever it is, it just never stops. And the more successful you get, the harder it gets, the more you have to work. It doesn't get easier. So you just got to be prepared. You got to love the grind. You got to love the hustle. And if you don't, You got to get out of this business before you get sucked in, because it will eat you up.
You know what you said? One thing that you said, you mentioned that, not just going to class, 2 times a week or whatever. That's what I tell the hitters. You can't just come and hit 2 times a week. Hitting is an everyday thing. I talk about some of the best in the game. You have Mookie Betts, Mike Trout, guys like that go up there and they do it every single day, countless amount of swings, at least 500. So, I mean, that was a good answer, because I see that everything is the same, just different fields. You want to get to the top, you got to put in that kind of work and dedication and passion.
Yeah, and the work is not going to stop. I mean, Peter could tell you, how long has he been doing this? It doesn't get easier. And the more recognition you get, the more successful you get, there's more expected of you. And the more you have to deliver on a constant basis. So the pressure doesn't stop. The hard work doesn't stop. It just gets harder and harder. But if you love it, it doesn't feel like hard work.
Are you happy with where your career is right now today? Because once again, I've stood next to you when you've had a conversation in a hotel lobby. That's kind of the closest I've ever gotten to really know and talk to you, which was in Nashville very recently. And as an outsider looking in, you are a guy that goes out there, has fun, and has made do and has been successful in everything someone's asked you to do out there. But at times it looks like you could be a little bit frustrated in your career.
Well, that's a loaded question. Are you asking, have I ever been like upset or jaded or bitter? I definitely have.
Now today.
Oh, right now, 100%. I believe, and this is me, and maybe, you don't have to agree with this opinion. It's my opinion. I believe success is how happy you are, not how much money you have or how famous you are. It's how happy you are with yourself. When you look in the mirror, are you happy with yourself? And right now, I'm the happiest I've been in a long, long time, because not that I had handcuffs in WWE. I'm not saying that. I love my time there. I mean, if it wasn't for WWE, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. You know what I'm saying? But the handcuffs are off. I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want, try whatever I want. And not everything I do is going to be a success, right? I might fall flat on my face, but all I've ever wanted was opportunity. And right now, I'm just taking all these opportunities. And, Impact, GCW, whatever it is, I'm going to try to hit a home run. I might not. I might hit a single. I might strike out, but I'm going to try.
So
look at
baseball analogy.
Yeah, he's just about to say.
Yeah, I like that.
That's right, baby.
So, speaking of the opportunity and all that kind of stuff. So you created opportunity for yourself, creating, the YouTube series way back in, man, that was years ago, right? Like 10 years ago or something like
2011. That. 2011. Yeah.
So you created that. And then I know an Impact, because you work there now, if something's going on and something's getting hot, Impact's going to run with it. They're going to make a story around it. They're going to do everything they can to keep that,
smart,
that steam going.
Yes.
WWE's not really like that. Like, so when they saw that, massive amount of everybody getting behind you and stuff like that, were there people upset going man, now we have to switch our plans? Or were they actually yeah, this is great. We're going to run with this?
It was definitely a very frustrating time. It's funny because it's been 10 years and time flies. And I actually have a podcast that is kind of like the sequel, if you will, of the old YouTube show called MC True Long Island Story. And it comes out every week. And we go 10 years prior to what happened on the YouTube show, what was going on in my career. So there's a lot of interesting stories there. This week, I just tell a story how I came up with this internet championship. And I actually got a nice belt made. At first, it was like a toy, my little brother's toy intercontinental title that I reworded it internet. And that was fine for a couple of weeks, but I wanted to be taken seriously. So I spent $1,500, got a real belt made, and I brought it to TV to try to show Triple H, Vince, whoever, can I wear this on television? I just told this story on the podcast, and there are witnesses to this story. So if you don't want to believe me, you can ask other people. So it's during the day. Everyone's around the ring. It's the rehearsal. Triple H is running the rehearsal. And I don't remember if I'm wearing the title or have it on my shoulder, in my hands, whatever. And he says, "You're such a mark for yourself." and I respond with something like, "Listen, I don't really think I'm the champion of the internet. It's a gimmick, like the $1 million title."
Yeah.
And he says something like, "If this was 10 years ago, the whole locker room would have kicked your ass." And I said, "Well, the whole locker room loves me." And then he said, "That's why the houses are half empty." So I don't know how I was supposed to respond to that. I don't know if it's my fault that the house are half empty. I don't know if he meant that like people liking each other is why the house are half empty. I'm not sure, but there was definitely some resistance to what I was doing.
Awesome.
That sounds like front office stuff. That sounds like the suits. That's what that sounded like right there.
Yeah, but you know what? It just fueled my fire. And at the time, the YouTube show was picking up steam, and that's something I started on my own, just because I was just sick of the spot I was in. You know, I wanted to achieve more, and at the time, I knew, hey, if I'm going to achieve more, I got to grab that quote unquote brass ring by myself and create my own opportunity. So that's why I started the YouTube show. I wanted to either get noticed or get fired. I didn't want to get fired, but I just wanted to create so much buzz that if I did get fired, I could have went to TNA or something and been the guy who WWE fired for trying to get over, you know?
Yeah. So with that and like the show and stuff, were you, how do I put this? Here, I'll come back to this. Dimitri, you go. I want to be able to put this right. So Dimitri, go ahead.
Well, who are the people that you looked up to that got you in the wrestling business, and then ultimately being one of the major brothers and one of the edge hedges?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, you know, because as a kid, you know, I, of course, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, these larger than life characters. Listen, I still love action figures, right? But as a kid, I really loved them. And these guys were like real life action figures. So like, you know, if you're a kid and you're playing with your Superman toy, there's not a real Superman, you know what I'm saying? But there really is Hulk Hogan. There really is the Ultimate Warrior. There really is the Macho Man. So those guys I just loved. And then guys like Shawn Michaels was the first like bad guy heel that I liked. And I didn't really understand why, but I was just getting older, and like I started to appreciate like the moves and like the storytelling of matches. But it was around like the early 2000s where guys like Edge, Christian, and Jericho were my favorites. Cause I mean, it's crazy because at the time they were the quote unquote smaller guys. And I thought to myself, hey, if these guys can make it, then I can. And that's what really made me, turn my dream into like something I'm really going to try to do. And like you said, the Edge heads, years later, I get to ride with Edge, team with Edge, wrestle with Edge. So it was a dream come true.
I want to touch on your podcast, which you kind of talked about, the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, and me being a podcaster. And I kind of like to ask wrestlers who started doing their own podcast or web shows, did it change your opinion on podcasting or podcasters in general? Because I know being a wrestling podcaster, there's a kind of dirty stink on us sometimes. But now that you've ventured into this, I think 2018 was when you started doing it. Has it kind of changed your opinion of the wrestling podcast industry?
I never had a negative opinion on it because I was somebody who was listening to them, whether it be wrestling or other things. I'm a big theme park guy. So I listen to a lot of like Disney and Universal theme park podcasts. So it was always something that fascinated me, but I didn't want to just start a podcast to have a podcast. I wanted it to be about something special, something that I could confidently talk about every single week and be passionate about. And that's what Wrestling Figures, that's how that started, because Brian Myers and I, you know, he's someone I met in wrestling school in 2003, and we hated each other because we were the same age, same physique, same look. And I didn't get into the business. I didn't want to be the Rockers or Demolition or the Bushwhackers. I wanted to be a singles guy. So when they put us together as a team, like, I don't want to team with this guy, you know. But then when we found out, I forget exactly how we found out, but we're both 18-year-old kids who were collecting wrestling figures like in secret. You know, that broke the ice, and that continued to be like the theme of our friendship for so many years. And I was just annoying him. Hey, let's start a podcast. Let's start a podcast. And we actually went to WWE, and I forget what we called it. Maybe it was like the Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins Wrestling Figure Podcast, whatever it was. And they said no. They said, we're not interested in podcasts. We see nothing in collectibles. And we're like, all right, that's it. We tried. And then somebody who, I'm not going to say who it was, but somebody in the office said, you know what? Just do it yourselves and see what happens. And I had learned from that YouTube show that I started by myself that even if they don't do it for you, if you use their intellectual property, like Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins, they instantly own it. So I said, okay, let's do it. Let's be Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, our real names. And let's make sure we're very, very careful. Don't do anything that WWE can say they own. And thank God we did it that way, because when we got released, the podcast was still ours. If it was the Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins Wrestling Career podcast, once we got released, it would have been gone.
That's very interesting. So when you did go into, since we're on podcasts and the social media and stuff like that, when you did, let's go back to the YouTube show.
Yeah.
When you did that, did other people like help you with that? Like,
No.
or like ideas and stuff or anything? Cause I know like
yeah.
whenever you come up with ideas, somebody's like, oh, I have an idea for your show when something gets hot like that, you know?
Sure. Yeah. So there was definitely people I would bounce ideas off of, but I taught myself how to edit. I filmed it all myself. I wrote it all myself. And listen, go watch them back. The editing sucks. It's not good, but it was all me, and it would take me days. But it's like the bare minimum. It's horrible for me. It was like I was like editing Star Wars, you know,
Yeah.
but it sucked. But it was all me doing it. Even like a year into it, WWE took it over and moved it to their YouTube channel, but it was still me doing it all.
So they didn't even give you extra like producers, like, hey, we're gonna send a producer that like it's educated on this.
They did give me a shitty camera and a not brand new laptop.
Awesome.
So I said, so I think it's a laptop. I think they might have put some sort of like bug in it so they could track what I was doing, because it was a laptop, but it didn't have a box. It was very shady.
I want to go into the collectibles industry. I collect, not like you do, but I collect like the DC action figures I have behind me and beside me. And so what is the pieces that you collect, and what is the most expensive piece? Because I also used to collect baseball cards as well.
Oh, well,
PSA 10 rookie card.
PSA cards are in, baby. Listen, wrestling figures, that's my number one, but I also have a lot of Star Wars, Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters. I don't buy things to resell them. I don't buy them with the hope they'll be worth money someday. Some of the things I have, I couldn't give away, worthless, right? But then some things I have are worth thousands of dollars. So I guess that's good, right? It's good to know that, God forbid, I couldn't wrestle again. I could sell this stuff off. But I just never grew out of the toys. I just never grew out of it. Even like, in high school, I wasn't admitting that I was collecting these toys. I would buy them for my youngest brother and still play with them. Or I'd go to Toys R Us and ask for a gift receipt because I didn't want the clerk to know that they were for me. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But
the effort just to collect the things you like.
Right. But now I don't care. Now we have the podcast about it. Now I'm proud of it. But, I want to break that stigma, like now 2021 comics are cool. Video games are cool. Why can't action figures be cool? Like the 40-year-old version that came out, early 2000s, the guy was literally a virgin. Like this guy must be a virgin because he has these figures. I'm not a virgin. I have sex all the time and I have great action figures.
So what I'm hearing is you can have action figures and sex.
That's right. That's what I'm saying right here. That's
Ken
the clickbait headline.
Ken and Barbie.
But you better have your own action figure as well, like you do, if you want to have the sex,
Well,
right?
so do you, PD.
Yeah, and I have sex as well. Yes. So how do we get? Anyways, Dennis, let's steer this back on track. All right.
You're going, Dennis.
First of all, I know PD, he's not having sex. Just to throw that out there.
Nobody believes you. See, there's no pop right there. Nobody believes you.
They don't have to. I know the truth, and that's all that matters. Let's go back to this wrestling figure talk, because I am a wrestling figure nerd. I'm slightly older than you guys, so I had the the one-piece plastic WCW figures, which will still always be near and dear to my heart.
The Galoob.
Very much so.
Yeah.
What are some of the figures that have no real, but other than sentimental value, some of the maybe even types of figures?
Yeah, so I grew up. I was born in '85, and the memories I have of childhood was playing with wrestling figures. I don't remember my first match that I saw. All I remember is having these big rubber figures in the '80s, and I still have those ones. They're in my parents' house in my basement. And like, the fingers are chewed off and the paint's missing. But that's what I grew up on. And then, eventually the Hasbros and the Galoobs in the early '90s, and I just never stopped. So I think my favorite ones are the ones that came out. They started in 1996. They were called the Jack's Bone Crunching action figures. like they have zero value, none. But
Oh.
at the time, it was like I want to say my most professional playing, because the internet just came out. You were able to download the entrance music, and I had a computer so I could type out the title history and stuff like that. So that's when I was the most invested. But those figures are worthless, like garbage. You can buy them now, like in the package, for like 10, 15 bucks. There's JYD right there. I see him. There he is.
Yeah, you wouldn't happen to add a chain, would you?
There's 3 versions of the chain, right? There's silver, black, and red. There's 3 chains. That's called a variant in the biz, Petey.
I'll guess I'll come out and say I'm not a collectible action figure guy.
That's fine.
I guess I'm the loser right now on this show. But speaking of losers, so you're getting married soon, right?
That's right. That's right.
I didn't mean to segue.
That was the worst.
I know, but it was also like it's all fun. So the engagement. So I've been following your like 2-year-long engagement on social media and stuff. Like you guys get engaged, and then the pandemic hits, so you have to postpone that, and then so are you guys actually going to get married soon?
Yeah. So the plan is to get married this New Year's Eve. We were supposed to get married last New Year's Eve, but the pandemic kind of fucked that all up.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to do it again this New Year's Eve. And at this point, I just want to get it over with, right? I just want to get married, get it over with. So we were working on the whole situation. Like, she's from Canada, so her family couldn't get over.
They still can't.
I think they just opened the border.
Oh, hold on. That new Delta variant came up, and
they switched things around.
And I mean, I don't know which border she crosses, but I heard they're going on strike, and they're gonna. Dude, we'll have to talk about this offline. But
I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that, Petey.
Yeah, so let's edit that out right there. So
well, don't worry.
That's all news that came out today.
Anything that I do, she doesn't listen to, so it's all good.
Oh man, but hopefully it works. Maybe you guys can just elope or something like that.
Yeah,
I was just wondering where you guys were at, because it's a slow burn story, man. Like it's a long one that I'm following, kind of like when you have those old school like Hulk Hogan versus Andre Giant, it's build up for a year before the payoff, and that's what this is happening.
Yeah, so the plan is to get married this New Year's Eve, and in typical Matt Cardona fashion, I guess I'm having exclusive wedding variants to our action figures that will only be available to the people who go to the wedding. So I know, like, at the end of the night, like, Uncle Tony's gonna go around like seeing who didn't take theirs and put it on eBay.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. Good. Dimitri,
I want to be invited to the wedding so I can have those variants.
A lot of people do. Trust me.
So,
all right.
Well, I'll jump in because I've got another question about
nerd.
I know about your wrestling career. It seems like a lot of the fans always push when there's a wrestling couple, like, Adam Cole needs to go to AEW because his girlfriend or his wife is there. Did you ever feel that pressure about working in the same company as Chelsea, being in a relationship? Like, because I know a lot of times it felt like you guys were like 2 ships passing in the night when it comes to like being in the same company together.
I would honestly prefer it that way, because I think what has kept our relationship going is that we don't really talk about the business. Like, she won't get, well, I don't know if she'll get mad, but I don't give a shit about her storyline ideas or what gear she wants to get or what her move set. I don't care. So it's great that we don't have to talk about it. Of course, listen, it's our job. It's going to come up, but I don't want to talk about it all the time. So now, like, we're together. We literally have been, we teamed against Petey. So like when it comes to those situations, I'm like, oh man, like, can we kind of be separate? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was very awkward when we were all in. No, it wasn't. It was great.
Yeah,
I had a blast with that, man. We threw that thing together like really quick, and that was probably one of the most fun matches I had. In a very long time. It wasn't like X Division where I had to call these, spots and all that kind of stuff. It was fun. We had a gimmick going on, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you for that. But
thank you. I enjoyed it as well.
Thanks. But my question is, you're done with WWE, you go to AEW, right? And then you show up in Impact.
Right.
So how did you reach out to Impact? Did somebody reach out to you? Like, how did that all come to? Who called you, all that kind of stuff?
So once I got released, of course, like I'm sure everybody was calling everybody, right? Mm-hmm. And I knew the people that I knew we're all going to Impact. So I didn't want to just be another guy going to Impact. You know, Brian Myers going to Impact, Heath, Eric Young, EC3, Gallows, Anderson. Like, so if I just show up there at Slammiversary, I'm just going to be Matt Cardona's at Impact with these guys.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't want to just be there, you know? And you know, so I did AEW. I had a short-term deal with them, like 3 shows or 4 shows. And that was great, but it didn't escalate to anything else, you know, like they didn't offer me a deal and I wasn't going to beg for one either, you know? So I was just kind of sitting around. And at the time we were kind of still in the middle of the pandemic where it wasn't quite safe to go do these independent shows. Like there were some going on, but it wasn't really the safest thing to do. And luckily we had the Major Wrestling Favorite podcast. So like that was paying the bills. So I wasn't like in this rush to go like maybe catch COVID in front of like 50 fans. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I was just kind of hanging out and I said, all right, well, damn, now it's January 1st. I haven't wrestled since September. I better start reaching out. You know, I better start like reaching out to other places. And I actually did reach out to Impact and they said there was nothing for me. I'm like, well, shit, you know, that's on me, I guess, you know, because I didn't go there when it was offered to me. And then a couple of weeks later, I'm at the gym doing buys and buys and tries. And I get a text like, hey, can you come to the pay-per-view tomorrow? And luckily, you know, I was in shape. I had just tanned the day before. And I was like, yeah, always ready. Right. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, holy shit, like I have not even like touched a ring since September. And I just had to, you know, put up or shut up. Right. And I was against Ace Austin, who was definitely the future of this business. Yep. You know, he moves like a son of a bitch, you know what I'm saying? And I had to keep up and I did. And they kept bringing me back. So I guess it worked out.
Now, along those same lines, what are your thoughts about the mass exodus that's going on with WWE with these releases? And I mean, now you're getting into the Braun Strowmans and the Bray Wyatts, you know, main eventers. I mean, as someone that's been there and went through it yourself, what are your thoughts about what's going on there? I mean, if you want to talk about that.
I mean, guys like Braun and Bray, listen, they're going to be fine, right? They're talented, they're creative, but you don't have to just be Braun or Bray to be a success. You know, you could be anybody else, but newsflash, you got to bust your ass. You got to hustle. You got to work. If you're expecting to make this like WWE money by just sitting on your ass, it ain't going to happen. You know, whether it be a pro wrestling tease, I'm not saying everyone has to start a podcast, but find your other passion and do something related to that. You got to hustle. I say crumbs make crumb cake, baby. You know, make a little here, a little there, a little here, a little there, and you got the whole fucking cake. It's not going to come. Some people it will come easy to. I'm sure Braun Strowman's phone is ringing off the hook. Mine wasn't, and I'm sure there's other guys whose phone is not ringing off the hook. But guess what? Work. Do it yourself because that's the only way it's going to get done.
You know, and we asked Aiden English, who was on a few weeks ago, this question, and I guess it kind of pertains to you too. You know, the pandemic hits, you kind of, you know, just was saying you weren't really doing anything. You showed up at AEW for a few weeks and then you were off. The pandemic hit. Was there anything in the back of your mind that was kind of like, uh-oh, this ride could be over. Maybe I should start thinking about plan B? Or do you think, you know what? I'm Matt fucking Cardona. I'm going to be all right.
I don't want to make it seem as confident as that second one, but I was not worried one bit. You know, like to me, and this is when I first started wrestling in 2003, there is no plan B. This is it. You know, I'm going to be wrestling till the day I die. I'm going to be the hockey tonk man, baby. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to shake, rattle, and roll all the way to the grave, baby. But, you know, luckily with the Major Wrestling Favorite podcast, there was money coming in. So fortunately for me, I didn't have to struggle, you know, when there was nowhere to go. You know, luckily that's what happened. If I didn't have that, if I had zero income coming in, maybe a different story. But fortunately for me, that wasn't the situation.
So I want to bring something up, and I don't know if it's a sore subject or anything. I just don't know anything about it. When we were doing that, we were at Swingers Palace together like a week or two ago on TV, and we filmed that. And then there was an inside joke. I didn't get it. And you're probably gonna have to explain it to me. You talked about with Swinger, like something like, oh, I don't want another Great American Bash debacle or something like that.
Oh,
well over my head. I don't know. Like, it seems like everybody in the room knew what was going on.
No. It was
maybe it's nothing, but I'm like, okay.
No. One of the, I I think it was Hardcore Justice, one of the Impact app pay-per-views a couple months ago. I wrestled Swinger in a crate American Bash where there was crates.
Oh.
There was like, you know, a crate on each pole, but like you didn't have to reach to get them. Like they were just sitting on the pole. So like Swinger is like climbing up the ropes, trying to get to the but it's right there.
Okay, so I totally misheard that one. I thought you guys, I'm like, what happened at the Great American Bash?
No, it was the Crate American Bash. That was the name of the match, the Crate American Bash.
Did they really name it that?
Yeah, they did.
I was there and I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for clearing that up for me, because that's been bugging me since like last month when we filmed that. I'm like, what is this?
It was just one of those matches where I'm like, what am I doing? It's like, I love Swinger. Swinger and I, you know, he was, when I went to Deep South Wrestling in 2006, he was there. So like, that's where obviously I've known of him for years before. So it's funny to reconnect all these years later, but to be in this like Crate American Bash match where like inside one of the crates was a picture of Scott Hall. There was like a mouse trap in one of them. It was the most ridiculous match maybe ever.
You didn't know that, Pete? You've been hanging out with D-Mac, haven't you?
No, I misinterpreted. I thought he said Great American Bash.
Oh no, the Crate.
It was Crate, and now that all makes sense to me because I remember that, and I remember Swinger getting his, you know, hand stuck in, and then the other one was. But they, as horrible as the match, not the match itself, but the gimmick part, the horrible as it was, you guys played it in because you guys used that other crate with the action figures.
Yeah, no, it all made storytelling, baby. It all made sense.
Yeah, man,
it all made sense.
So they made, you know.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
Dimitri?
I'm still fascinated by the story that Petey didn't know. So what was your favorite match thus far in your career?
Oh man, I mean, this is a typical answer, and I'm sure it sounds cliche, but it's true. It's you know, when I won the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania, it's definitely my favorite match for so many reasons. One, you know, I wasn't supposed to be in the match. I wasn't even like supposed to be considered for the match. And a couple of weeks before, I was on, whether it's Superstars or Main, one of the shows they tape before Raw or SmackDown that nobody watches. That one of those shows where you wrestle and the match goes to die. I talk about being always ready, but you know, I treat every match like it's a big deal, right? Because if you don't, who's gonna? And it just so happens that Vince McMahon was in his office. I don't know if he was eating a steak or getting a massage or what, but looked up and saw the match and said the next day at one of the production meetings, like, why aren't we doing anything with this guy? And then, you know, this was years after the YouTube show took off and then, you know, got destroyed. So like, you know, I think the management counted me out, the fans counted me out, and maybe I even counted myself out, you know? So I got this other chance. And, you know, I heard through the grapevine that, oh man, there's going to be this ladder match at WrestleMania and you're on the list. I'm like, what? Me? I'm on the list in this ladder match? Like, holy shit. And then of course, in typical, you know, Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona fashion, the next week I'm taking off the list. But to me, it was like, you know what? I was considered, like, maybe things will turn around. And then, you know, in an unfortunate for Neville, Pac, but fortunate for me, Pac, Neville was supposed to be in that match, but he gets hurt on Raw, like fucks his ankle up. And I'm like, this is it. This is I'm not someone I'm the worst politicker ever. That's probably why I'm in the spot that I'm in or the spot that I've been in. But I knew, like, holy shit, a spot's open. So, you know, Raw, he gets hurt. Next day at SmackDown, I find the head writer and I just like plead my case, why I deserve to be in that match, why no one else deserves to be in it more than me. And something that I was told I said during this pitch that I don't even remember saying, it wasn't planned line. It just came out. It was from the heart. I said, I've never heard my music play at WrestleMania, which was true. So that's what, 2016, I debuted in WWE in 2007. I never had like a WrestleMania match, like ever. Like, listen, I'm in Battle Royal, all the 10-man tags, all that bullshit, but never like, here's my music, I come out. So Road Dogg, that's who was the writer. He pulled me aside and said, listen, when you said like you never heard your music play at Mania, that really stuck with me, and we're going to get you in that match. And even then I didn't believe it. I was, you know, like, you don't believe it until it happens. And then the next week on Raw, they announced it. I was in the graphic. I was like, holy shit, I'm going to be in this match at WrestleMania. So just walking down that aisle and hearing that music was the win, right? But then to actually win the fucking match, to actually win the Intercontinental title. And listen, I get it. It was shock value. I don't give a shit. Shock me, baby. You know what I'm saying? And so much so that, you know, for WrestleMania, what they do is they bring the people who are in the match, they bring their family down to sit like front row. So my parents were front row to see all this. And Dolph Ziggler, one of my buddies, he like waves my dad over. He's like, come on in. My dad's like, okay. And my dad just hops the guardrail and slides in, like legitimately not part of the show. You know, so I'm on top of the ladder and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And I go down and my dad's there. I'm like, holy shit. And he gives me a big hug. And this was in Dallas. So they had like WrestleMania cowboy hats. And of course, my dad, the ultimate gimmick, is wearing one of these cowboy hats. He tries to put it on my fucking head. I'm like, get this cowboy hat off my head. You know what I'm saying? Get this thing off my head. But that, you know, that was something that no writer wrote that. That was just legitimate part of the show. And, you know, and to me, that's not just like the greatest moment of my career, but at the time was the greatest like moment of my life. Like, how cool is that? Like my dad in the ring with me at WrestleMania when I win this title. It was really special, and it still is really special.
Well, I got 2 follow-up questions for that. One,
Okay.
How much shit did you get in when your dad came in the ring? And then number 2 is, and I'm very curious with this stuff because, you know, when like I won the X Division titles, I like my first one, like it was a big one for me.
Right.
And I know how they told me and all that. So how did they tell you? Was that planned ahead of time? Like when they put you in the match, the Road Dogg come up and be like, yeah, we're also going to put you over? Or was it like the day of, or did they switch it around a little bit?
So to answer the first one, I guess at first, like Vince was like furious in the headset, like who the fuck is it? And then they told him who it was, and it was all cool. It was all good.
Okay.
It was fine. And then the next thing, so we had Raw. I think we were in like Brooklyn or something on a Monday, and then Tuesday we flew to Texas for Mania week, and then we had our first rehearsal on Tuesday. And I remember Monday night after Raw, Miz told me he's going to win the title. And I'm like, you know what? Cool. I love Miz, one of my best friends. I'm glad he's winning. And the next day, like I was one of the first people at the rehearsal, and Miz walks in like smiling from ear to ear. He's like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. It turns out of course, he's a stooge. He knows what's going on. You know, he knows the deal. You know, he's friends with the writers, and he knew that the plan was for me to win. And one of the producers, it was Fit Finley and Jamie Noble.
Yeah.
And he said like, oh, we're going to put it on, you know, Zach. And listen, there was a lot of boo-boo faces in that room. I'm not going to say who had them, but there was a few boo-boo faces in that room. And of course, I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to win. But at the same time, like, holy shit, it's Tuesday. WrestleMania is Sunday. This is going to change.
Yeah. That's what, yeah.
But luckily it didn't, you know, and the rest is history.
Awesome. Good.
We got time for one more question apiece. And I'm going to go back to your podcast because once again, I am a slappy for you. I've made it no secret many times on the podcast. This is a bucket list interview. You've got the podcast, which is now spun off into its own network. By the way, congrats on that.
Oh, thank you so much.
As a collector and as a fan, are you an autograph seeker? And if so, what was the hardest wrestling autograph for you to obtain? Because in my mind, I figure you go to a show and you're like, look, I've got this special edition, action figure of yours. Would you sign it? And some guy, give you that look of like, really, you're asking me to sign something? Do you get that a lot?
So I'm not a big autograph guy now. I was when I was a kid. I still have all the 8x10s that I collected as a kid, whether it be going to autograph signings or whatever it was. But this is a funny story. So in, I guess it's 2002, it's Hulk Hogan just came back to WWE, and there was this big signing at Toys R Us in Times Square. And I like cut school and I went and I met Hulk Hogan. They actually like put it in the, I think it's called like Hulk Still Rules, like the DVD. And you see me like online doing the ear and the point. So that was cool. I still have that. It's a Hulk Hogan figure signed by Hulk Hogan. But then years later, like this is like, I guess 2 years ago, I was like fucking around on like Hulk Hogan's like beach website. And I noticed that anything on his site for another like $75, you can get signed by Hulk Hogan. And they just so happened to have a Zack Ryder figure in stock. So I bought the Zack Ryder figure and I paid the extra $75 to get it signed by Hulk Hogan. So I have a Hulk Hogan figure signed by Hulk Hogan and a Zack Ryder figure signed by Hulk Hogan.
Awesome.
It's just so ridiculous that I had to do it.
I got a bunch of other questions, but I'll just, I guess, ask you in person in a couple weeks.
I have time. Ask away. I don't care.
Well, we got to, we have a limit and all that kind of stuff. So this is the one I'm going to ask. And
Okay.
if you say I'm not answering it, then that's fine. I'll just go on to my next one.
Sure.
So we usually ask a lot of the guests we have, they've worked previously for WWE, and we always get a kick out of, what's their best Vince McMahon story? A couple things.
Yeah.
A couple of things. I love hearing everybody's impression of Vince McMahon. It's always like spot on. And it seems like we know the guy on the podcast,
Right.
even though we don't know the guy. But do you have like a funny Vince McMahon story?
Yeah, listen. I'm not going to even attempt the impression because it's going to suck. And I don't know if this is a funny story, but this is like another like holy shit story. So this is right before WrestleMania 35, and at the time I'm teaming with Hawkins again, and we're doing nothing. He's in the middle of this losing streak, and we're just like together, and we're supposed to be in this Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I think it's like a week away or 2 weeks away. And WrestleMania is going to be in New Jersey, but they were saying it was New York, even though it was New Jersey. And I'm from New York, but whatever, hometown crowd. And for some reason, they started this thing where a little backstory. I know this is probably too much info, but I don't care. You had to like submit your gear for WrestleMania.
What?
And I'm thinking like, first of all, I'm in this fucking Andre the Giant Jabroni Battle Royal. I'm not submitting my gear because they're only looking for excuses to say no, right? So I'm not going to submit it. But of course, Brian, he submitted it. He wanted this, like, it was like this green Jets gear, hometown where the Jets play. And of course, Vince McMahon says no. Right. So we're like, we have to go see Vince for a couple of things. One, I had this idea. Okay, it's the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Like, who cares? Who cares what goes on? Let's pitch that it's down to me and him, the final two, and I sacrifice myself. And he wins, he breaks the streak, hometown crowd, blah, blah. And then he also wants to pitch to let him wear that Jets gear. So we go in, we talk to Vince. He doesn't like our pitch for Hawkins to go over. He does let Hawkins wear the Jets gear. And that's it, whatever. The win of the conversation that Hawkins gets to wear the gear. A couple of days later, we get a call. Oh, yeah, you guys are now wrestling for the tag team titles at WrestleMania. And I have to believe it's because like we were fresh on his mind because we went in there because we were not doing anything for the titles. We weren't involved. And I think it's because we pleaded our case. We're the hometown guys. And then
probably
days later, we're putting this match and then we end up winning the tag team titles at WrestleMania. And I have to believe it's all because we went in there and pitched to win that battle royal.
That's a great story. Usually we hear the opposite of like how ridiculous like Vince is. Like, why did he say that? Like that doesn't even make sense or whatever. But you showed the other end, which I love. It's like, a light bulb went off on his head and he was like, okay, let's make this happen. So he does.
Yeah. And listen, I don't know that for a fact, but I can only assume because the tag team title match came out of thin air. We were doing nothing. We were in the battle royal. Yeah. And then we go from being the battle royal to having this tag team title match. And I have to believe it's because we went in there and talked up how we were the hometown guys and the underdogs and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Have we even mentioned the fourth wall, how promotions are cross promoting and anything? Are you involved in any of that or any of that? That's my last question. Are you going to be jumping in to New Japan or AEW, and you and Brian Myers gonna eventually get back together? Because I've been watching the feud entire time.
So I think I hate using this term free agent, but I guess technically I am. Impact has been awesome. Impact is my priority right now, but I don't have a contract there. So I guess I could show up anywhere. As a matter of fact, I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but tonight on AEW, the Major Wrestling Favorite Podcast Past Blue Ribbon commercial aired on AEW. You know what I'm saying? So like, we're just trying to get our shit in anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So I would love to just bounce around. But Impact is somewhere. I feel like I have a lot of opportunity, and I feel like as soon as I got there, I felt welcome there. I felt like it was a great place to be. The locker room's awesome. Management is awesome. I'm not just saying that because PD's office and he's a stooge, but I'm kidding. But it's just a great atmosphere, a great vibe. And now that we have the people back, like I can tell that everything's gonna, I feel like Matt Cardona and Impact, our paths have kind of paralleled, where there's been highs and lows and highs and lows, and people have counted me out, Impact out, but I feel like we're both on the up and up. And that's why I feel like Impact is the perfect spot for me right now.
I want to end this podcast with one thing I didn't even get to ask you earlier in the episode, and I think is one of the most underrated things you've done since you've won the GCW championship. Is you're at Disneyland with it.
That's right.
And first of all, I know how hard it is to sneak anything into Disney. How do you get that championship belt in? And you're taking a picture, you're done. Do you carry it around all day? Do you put and how many people come up and ask for pictures with you at that time?
Yeah, so I had a backpack all day, and I had it in the backpack. I wasn't just carrying it around all day. And I went through security, went through the metal detector. They checked it out. You know, they knew it was in there, so I didn't really sneak it in. But yeah, right before I took the picture for that castle, I unzipped the backpack, put it on, and I put it back in. I wasn't walking around with the title all day, saying, "Oh, look at me, I'm the I hate getting noticed in public. I don't want to be the center of attention ever. But for that picture, I did it because I knew the GCW fans would hate it, and I want them to hate me as much as possible.
Man, I tell you, it's some of my favorite stuff you've done right now is watching you just take the most simplest things and turn it into the biggest heel stuff ever. I mean, you and Domino's Pizza, that's the most simplest thing. You have a pizza and a pizza cutter, and all of a sudden you're hated for it.
I love it. It's great. It's so easy because I feel like I know what that audience hates. And listen, I always say this. I don't want to prove people wrong. I want to prove my fans right. People who have supported me, I want to prove them right. I'm not trying to gain new fans. I'm not trying to convert people or convince them to cheer for me. If they do, great. Glad to have you. But if you don't like me, my job, in my opinion, is to make you hate me even more, especially as the GCW champion and that audience. Like, I want you to hate me. I want you to boo me out of the building. I don't want you to throw a pizza cutter at me. I don't necessarily want a death threat, but I want you to hate me. That's the name of the game, right?
See, I think the biggest rib, you're ribbing yourself, I think, right now. You're doing so. This is why. Listen, hear me out. You're doing such a good job at this. Like you're bringing eyes to GCW that our eyes haven't been. You know what I mean? Like you're top notch right there. But what that means is houses are up. So guess what you're gonna have to do? More fucking hardcore matches. You're gonna get your ass kicked more. They're gonna keep the belt on you, ribs on you, man. So I mean, unless you like it,
listen, the death match thing is something. I respect the hell out of it. It's not for me. I don't want to listen. I've been getting so many emails to my booking email. Listen, I'm not doing death matches in your local indie fed next Saturday. No, it's not happening. You know what I'm saying? I think GCW is a cool spot. It's awesome. But whether it's GCW or Impact or whatever thing I'm doing, I always try to make it the biggest thing possible. Because if I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it?
Exactly.
If I don't think it's a big deal, who's going to make it a big deal? So whether, I'm wrestling West fucking Virginia this weekend, I'm going to make it the biggest deal possible. Because if I don't, no one else is gonna.
I tell you, the one thing I would love to see you do with that championship now is the old school NWO spray paint it with WWE.
I'm not gonna spoil what I have planned, but
I'm just saying
a custom title has been ordered. That's all I'm gonna say.
Nice.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Spray paint with WWE on it. They would die.
What if I called the GCW world title the GCW Universal title?
Oh,
that might really piss them off. That's all. That's the only hint you're gonna get.
All right.
We're calling your matches the Vinnie Mac Invitationals.
Oh, man.
All right, guys. Listen, we could do this all night long. Matt, please come back to the podcast because
this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We haven't even scratched the surface. Can you please tell people all about the podcast, where they can find you? This will come out this week, so if there's a website they can go to for future bookings, everything about you.
Yeah, so just follow me on Twitter and Instagram at the Matt Cardona, and the Major Wrestler Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Major WF Pod. Every Friday, we have a new podcast. If you love action figures, collectibles, cards, wrestling t-shirts, video games, we talk about it all. So hey, if you love me or hate me, just buy a t-shirt, baby, and or hate me. Just don't throw a pizza cutter at me. That's all I ask.
Man, brutal. listen, for everybody at home, the podcast is over. We'll say our goodbyes off the air. Wrestling Perspective. Make sure you rate, subscribe, follow, download, all that stuff. You guys know where to do it all. So Pete, Dimitri, Matt, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight.